What's up, y'all? So today I'd like to talk about a deck that is very near and dear to my heart. It's not a very good deck. In fact, it only does one thing turn 1, which is set up an Ibli lock, and on turn 2, it just makes Access Kotaker. But it's a very near and dear deck to my heart. This is the first deck that I ever bought in paper, and it is a very funny deck. So let's just jump straight into the deck profile. Again, this deck aims to actually link your opponent and give them Nightmare Corruptor Ibli such that they cannot special summon. Because Nightmare Corruptor Ibli makes them special summon only link monsters, but if you occupy both link zones, then they cannot link summon, which means they cannot special summon, which means you are probably going to win that game. They can get rid of this card, but they would need to open very good in order to beat our end board. So let's just jump right in. So we have 3 copies of Lady Debug to add a level 3 or lower Cybers monster. You're almost always going to search your Microcoder. Microcoder is then going to link off into a Kotaker monster so that you can add a Signet spell trap, usually your Signet Codec or your Signet optimization to allow you to keep playing. And if you have a really good hand, your Conflict, which is an Omni Negate and Banish for when you have a Kotaker monster, which in our end board, you will have a Kotaker monster. Then your 3 copies of Nightmare Corruptor Ibli. This is the biggest floodgate that you can give your opponent. Again, I talked about it recently, but again, you can just use it and they cannot special summon except for link monsters. Then we have our Mathemax Sigma and our Link Slayer. These are cards that you can just use at the start of the turn to just special summon, get a monster on the field before you commit to your normal summon. Mathemax Sigma, again, is actually very good because it can special summon from graveyard, and you can use it pitching on a Signet Mining and then still keep your advantage that way. And the same thing goes for a 1-for-1. 2 copies of the Link Slayer again. This is because 3 copies I feel is too bricky and 1 copy is not good enough, so 2 copies is what we go for. Then we have basically our combo line. So you have Code Generator to mill a Dotscaper to reborn itself from the graveyard, and then go to Xcode for your 2 copies of your Parallel Exceed. Parallel Exceed to summon itself, but if you have Parallel Exceed in hand, you can search either the Code Exporter or the Link Infra Flyer if you need a level 2 extender later down the line for a card such as Talkback Lancer. Then our inverted target is Format Skipper, almost exactly. Format Skipper to search our Gachiri Attic Nister. Gachiri Attic Nister to use in your Firewall Dragon to make it unaffected by card effects. Going to Dekotaker Heat Soul, our fire attribute targets, which is Salamangreat Gazelle to mill our counter trap card Salamangreat Roar. Salamangreat Spinny, just a generic extenders if you have a Gazelle on field, and Mathemax Subtraction. Then we have 3 cards that are able to just special summon themselves from the hand during a very crucial moment of the combo. And in later videos, we'll go over the main combo line, the choke points of the combos, and how you can keep on playing. So keep an eye out for those videos on my channel. I'll also have another video talking about the generic theory that comes with Kotakers and how Kotakers can and should be built for the current format. So anyway, we have these 3 cards we can special summon from the hand: Cybers Converter, Backup Secretary, and Cross Debug. In my opinion, you play a Cybers Converter and a Backup Secretary because these are once per turns to summon. Even though the Cybers Converter is better because it's level 2, so you can go into Talkback Lancer, the Backup Secretary is more useful for when you need to go into X-Kotaker. Now, I'll talk about it during the combo video, but basically, instead of milling a Dotscaper, you can mill a Nightmare Corruptor Ibli if you don't open it and normal summon it. But what that means is that instead of reborning the Dotscaper, you need another extender. Backup Secretary is a perfectly fine extender in that scenario to go into your Kotaker inverted. Cross Debug is a dark attribute, which means that if you cannot search your Ibli with your codec, and let's say you don't want to do your Signet optimization, and you're not afraid of Nibiru, for example, you can use Microcoder, go into Kotaker, get your codec. If your codec's already in the field, search the Cross Debug, which means that you can have a dark extender. A lot of the times you aren't able to get a dark extender. Microcoder is pretty much your only one. But Cross Debug allows you to have just one searchable extender, which is why I prefer it over something like Mathemax Addition. Then your 3 copies of your Signet Codec. Again, this searches Cybers monsters based on the attribute, 1 attribute per turn. Because we use 5 attributes, we can get +5 with this card. It's crazy. Signet Mining, again, to search pretty much the entire deck, and has really good pitch targets in Dotscaper and Mathemax Sigma. Mathemax Sigma being the king of the pitch targets. This is also pretty good Ash Bait. Signet Optimization, I already talked about this. This is another normal summon, but it also has battle effects, which does come up not super often, but it does quite come up. And then you have your 3 generic extenders. 1-for-1, pretty much a starter. You can send Mathemax Sigma again to summon out your Microcoder and be pretty good in that regard. Monster Reborn, just to reborn a monster and continue playing, that's pretty good. World Legacy Succession, just another monster reborn but requires a link monster. You almost always have free link zones during the choke point of your combo, so this is a pretty good card. Then you're called by the grave to stop hand traps. Salamangreat Sanctuary is your Garnet. You never want to draw this in addition to your Dotscaper. But this card is necessary because it makes the extra link possible, which means they cannot crash Nightmare Corruptor Ibli in order to get rid of it. this card will remain on the field because 0 attacking monsters when they crash do not disappear. Then of course your counter traps, these are Omni Negates. Silent Conflict is an Omni Negate and Banish when you have a Code Talker monster, and Salamangreat is an Omni Negate Destroy when you have a Salamangreat monster, which on our end board we will have. Then you're going second cards for game 1, down with some Pankatops to trade 1-for-1 with certain cards such as Destroy Phoenix Enforcer if people are still playing that card, or Totally Awesome. And Change of Heart to just take control of a monster. This also can be used to bait out the Totally Awesome, etc. But you kind of don't want to give your opponent Change of Heart unless you kill them that turn, in which case it doesn't matter. So that's the main deck. Let's go into the extra deck now. And the extra deck, I'm going to be going through the cards in the form of the combo that you go through them. So of course you start off with your Code Talker. Code Talker will link it then into your Trans Code Talker. Trans Code Talker to reborn the Code Talker, make them untargetable, then go into X Code Talker. X Code Talker can then prevent the cards that it points to from being destroyed. You go from there into your Code Talker inverted, get your format skipper, search your Gachiri ad Ignister, and these zones are important so that you can use Parallel Exceed on these zones. Then your Splash Mage to reborn a monster. To get another attribute, you go into Decode Talker Heat Soul. Heat Soul to draw a card and set your fire attribute, your Salamangreat Gazelle for example. Then you have your Firewall Dragon. Firewall Dragon is also used to bounce your opponent's normal summon. Mekk-Knight Crusader Avermax is the main defensive boss monster of this deck. This card is pretty difficult to beat because you cannot beat over it by attacking and you cannot beat over it by targeted anything. So this card is pretty strong, and it also has the floating effect of spinning cards. So if they go into something such as Stealth Kraken, for example, you can spin that card so that they don't keep that monster on the field. Talkback Lancer allows you to create the extra link and kind of cheat it out, because you can reborn a Code Talker monster in your graveyard. You use Link Devotee as the tribute target. Link Devotee gives you your extra tokens that you can use to finish off your extra link. From that point, you're actually going to be locked into Link to Zalora, so you finish off your combo with 2 copies of Salamangreat Balinks. You Balinks, search the Sanctuary, activate the Sanctuary, link the Balinks for another Balink to trigger those Salamangreat Roar in graveyard. The Roar triggers and it sets and you end on your counter trap. Then with that last token, you just make Lingaribo to stop against a card such as pretty much evenly matched, maybe infinite impermanence, but that's about it. Then on the crackback, you have your Update Jammer and your Axis Code Talker to just OTK your opponent on that turn. Now I'll talk about the side deck that I built. Again, this deck has a pretty good time already beating with back row removal because of Axis Code Talker. However, you need to be able to get rid of monster negation, which is what most of this format is surrounded around. So cards like Raigeki and Dark-Hole are good because of that exact reason. If you have Lightning Storms, you're balling out on cash, but Raigeki and Dark-Hole are cheap cards that you can use alternatively. Dark Ruler No More, again, was in the Owlbat Strike structure deck, and this is cheaper Forbidden Droplet. I have feelings about this card, which I'll talk about in my theory video, but Dark Ruler No More is still pretty good. I play in the side because you want to be able to get to your main line if you're going first, but if you're going second and in game 3, no matter what, you probably want to main deck this card just because it's really strong. Back row hate is Harpy's Feather Duster and the classic Mystical Space Typhoons to stop against certain floodgates such as Crackdown or Ghost and Match and so on and so forth. And then 3 copies of the Dimensional Barrier. You flip this up in this format, you call Xyz or Fusion and you're good. Xyz stops Exosister, Fusion stops Tearlament, and Xyz as well also stops Totally Awesome and their gigantic sprite. So if you have a Nibiru, they can not beat your Nibiru unless they have Cross-Out Designator, but that's another story. Anyway, so that's the main deck profile, guys, and remember that I will make follow-up videos talking about the theory behind this deck and the combos behind this deck and their respective choke points. There's many ways to build this deck. This is again what I chose to build because I like ending on the counter trap, but that's pretty much it. So thank you all for watching. Keep an eye out for those extra videos, and I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.